Today we're going to take a look at this controller that got sent in and see if this ring can be fixed. So a customer sent this controller in, and clearly it's been taped up to prevent any further damage, and probably as a pseudo DIY repair. So first I'm going to take this tape off and we're going to see what's going on underneath. So the first thing I'm noticing is I don't even know why there was tape here, because there didn't seem to be any cracks or damage there. But this outer ring is definitely cracked, and it looks like the ribbon cable underneath was definitely damaged as well. So what we're going to have to do is take this controller apart and probably replace this ribbon here. But it doesn't look like there's any damage to this portion of the ring, only the outer ring and this ribbon. To begin this repair, we're going to start by taking off the battery cover and the faceplate so that we can access the screws. I'm going to use my pry tool here to get up underneath the faceplate and sever the adhesive. If you're new here, there's 3 points where the faceplate sits inside the frame, here, here, and here. And there's adhesive at all 3 of those points that we need to sever. I'll run my pry tool up underneath the bottom here, and then we'll run it at the top as well. These 3 standoffs fit inside the frame at these 3 points, 1, 2, and 3. When we put the faceplate back on, those will have to align. Now I can use my T5 screwdriver to go through and remove all of these screws. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 screws to remove out of the faceplate, and then there's 1 screw here and 3 underneath this battery compartment sticker. This faceplate makes a good little screw holder so that you don't lose your screws when you're doing this repair. In order to access these 3 screws that are underneath the battery compartment sticker, we're going to have to remove this sticker. I have this chisel tool to help me get underneath here and remove this in as few pieces as possible. But really you could just use your thumbnail. You don't need a special tool for this job. Now I can access the 3 screws, 1, 2, and 3. Now that all my screws are out, I can start to disassemble the controller. I'm going to start with the ring here, which should be easy because it's broken anyway. The second portion that comes out is this interior grip portion. We're going to lift up on the front. We're going to unhook this portion here when we lift up on the front, and then we're just going to pull straight back. The grip trigger assembly is easy to remove. We're just going to kind of put a little pressure on this side here, peeling it away from this hook that's holding it in. And now we're left with this. The battery compartment has to be removed now. In order to do that, we have to undo this latch so that we can remove this ribbon cable. If you have more questions about how to remove the battery compartment, I do have a video on that specifically. And now we're left with this damaged ring. First inspection, I thought that just this ribbon was damaged and the outer ring was damaged, but it looks like we do have a pretty significant crack right here. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this portion of the frame on this controller. In order to do that, we're going to have to remove the trigger, the joystick, and the motherboard from this frame here. I'm going to start by removing the trigger. The trigger is held in place by this rod. We're going to press down toward the groove. If we press away from the groove by putting our screwdriver here in the groove, we're going to damage this ribbon cable. So I'm going to push away from this ribbon cable and toward the groove. That pushes it out the other side like this, and then we should just be able to grab it and pull it out. Now we can unlatch the ribbon cables here on the motherboard, and we can undo this Bluetooth antenna. There's 4 screws that hold the motherboard into the frame here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to go ahead and take those out. Since this portion of the ring is damaged, and it's basically this whole frame here, really all we can salvage from this ring is this outer portion. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Just like that. We'll go ahead and take our buttons too. At this point, this is pretty much trash, so we're going to throw it away. Now I can bring in my donor piece. As you can see, it's not broken. The frame here is intact, and this ribbon is intact. So we can go ahead and begin putting the controller back together by installing these 2 pieces of the rings here. I'm going to start at the back here. There's 2 hooks here in the back of the controller, and you can see this little tooth needs to fit inside this slot here. So I'm going to align everything, and then I'm just going to keep sort of a bend on the back of the controller so that those gently lift up over the teeth that are supposed to hold them in place. They'll click into place just like that, and then we'll align this portion of the controller here. Everything should fall into place, and you should see these holes just kind of align and the gap close. just like that. Now I'm going to put my buttons back in place. It seems like something that would be really confusing and you would need a manual for, but because the teeth on these are so specific, you can really just drop them into the spot that they're supposed to go. And even if they don't align perfectly at first, you can just turn them until they align, and then they'll always be exactly where they're supposed to be. Just like that. This trigger spring needs to sit on this little tooth here. When we screw in the motherboard, it'll get held in place with pressure. I'm just going to keep a little pressure on this board so I can move these ribbons into place. And now we're ready to start screwing this board back in. This Bluetooth antenna cable needs to sit in this retainer here, and then we can clip that into place with just a little bit of pressure. Now that the board's screwed in, I'm going to go ahead and put in my ribbon cables, and everything's looking good so far. If you need to, pause and take a screenshot of this. This is how it's supposed to look. Next, we're going to put the trigger back in place. I'm going to slide these two pieces of the spring. They should slot into these two holes, 1 and 2. And then our retaining rod will go back through the groove. Sometimes the spring doesn't want to stay in place and you have to wiggle it a little bit, but it should always be pretty aligned. You shouldn't have to fight with it too much. If you're fighting with it too much, you may damage the spring. And now that's working. We're going to reinstall the battery compartment. We're just going to align that up and push. Now that's in place. And we can put this ribbon cable back in place. This cable ribbon latch is pretty delicate. If I had to pick one area where most people are damaging their controllers in a DIY repair, it's this portion here. So just be careful with this because it's easy to tear off the board completely. We're going to put the trigger guard back on. This should just line up with this hole here, and we can put that back in place, and then we should be able to clip it on this side. Perfect. The controller's assembled enough now to where I can put a battery in it and make sure that everything's working. I'm getting an LED on the controller, which means that we're getting power to the board and power to the LED ribbons. I'll go ahead and do some testing and just make sure that everything's working. We're back and everything seems to be working okay, so we're going to go ahead and just finish building this out. The interior grip portion here just slides on, and then I'm going to lift back up on this, slide that in, and make sure those holes align. Should clip in place just like that. And since our old ring was broken, we've got a new donor ring here that we can just slide over the top. This tooth here has to slide into the hole at the front of the ring. We're going to clip that in. Perfect. And then we're just going to kind of work our way around, make sure there's no gaps, and then clip it in on that side. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and start putting our screws in. I always start with the long screws out of habit, but it really doesn't matter which screws go in first. We're all about practicality here. Alrighty, and now all our screws are back in place. I do try to say this every video because I see this a lot. It's probably one of the most common issues when people try to do a repair at home on their Quest 2 controllers. So don't put a screw here. I know this looks like a screw hole, but it's not a screw hole. If you put a screw there, it will damage your board. So just don't put one there. You only have so many screws. They go in all of these holes. If you need to take a screenshot of this, please do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the front. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the battery compartment. Finally, we're going to put our faceplate back on. We're going to align with the buttons and the joystick here. And we're going to make sure those toggles are lined up. Feels like everything fits okay. And then we're just going to press down on all those toggles there so that they line up and they go back in the holes where they're supposed to be. And that's all it should take, just a little bit of pressure. And now this controller's ready to go. Guys, if you hadn't had a chance to subscribe to our channel yet, it really helps us out. We really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. What we're trying to do here is create a channel to help people repair their own VR equipment. So if you have a repair need, like a broken controller or a broken headset, you can always check out our channels for more information on how to do those things. And if you need parts or tools or repair advice, you can always check out our website. I appreciate y'all watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.